Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Mazda Multimedia Season 2, Episode 3, Why We Hear You series. Today's episode is towards group health insurance, which can be the need of the hour in our Parsi community in the very near future. Our guest for today's episode is Mr. Manik Dastoor, who has years of experience in the field of insurance. Mr. Dastoor, why would one need an insurance?
You mean healthcare, mediclaim insurance? Do you realize that one of the major problems for urban poverty is hospitalization? A serious illness, like most calamities, arrives unannounced and takes a grievous toll on the person, not only physically but also mentally, emotionally and financially. Moreover, statistics says that those diseases which were typically encountered in the age of 50s past 10 years back have now begun to strike in the early 30s, 40s to the young due to stressful and unhealthy lifestyle. It is worse if the afflicted person is the income earner of the family, as a critical illness can eliminate or reduce one's capacity to earn for a relatively long period of time. This is one of the major reasons, as I mentioned, of urban poverty today.
Are public health services adequate in India?
Public healthcare facilities are never adequate to meet the healthcare requirements of the entire population of a country. Generally, patients have to rely on the more expensive private healthcare services. Moreover, in certain critical illnesses, the cost of treatment can be exorbitant, causing a severe strain to the family's finances. Most senior citizens rely on their life savings for their medical treatment. However, with rising inflation, their savings are rarely sufficient to meet such healthcare expenses. In case this primary breadwinner suffers a heart attack, cancer, chronic kidney disease, etc., the rest of the family will face a severe cash crunch. It would not be possible for them to sustain their lifestyle, repay debts, or even afford the high cost of treatment.
So, could you tell us some reasons for these lifestyle diseases that strike at an early age?
With the rise in urbanization, the changing lifestyle, and the increased stress, India is experiencing a rise in the non-communicable lifestyle diseases, increasing injuries, and rise of infectious diseases. The disease pattern has changed rapidly in the last few years.
Could you tell us what would be an approximate cost of treating these diseases?
Annual expenditure on health-related expenses in a family may range from a minimum of few thousand rupees to a maximum of 10 lakhs or even more, depending on hospitalization and domiciliary care required thereafter. Further, the medical inflation and advanced technologies result in increasing the medical cost of these treatments on a yearly basis. For these householders, therefore, in the absence of health insurance, healthcare costs are met along with other recurring household expenses. This is termed as out-of-pocket expenses It is no surprise, therefore, that nearly 60% of households, and the primary reason for saving is to enable them to deal with medical emergencies. A World Health Organization (WHO) report from March 22 estimated over 70% households incurring catastrophic levels of health expenditures every year.
How does this affect our Parsi community?
As we know, there are only 57,000 Parsis in India, are there? And around 40,000 Parsis live in Mumbai. Or do we see the same faces again and again? More than 300 Parsi households suffer every year due to medical exigencies, which leave the income earners into heavy debts. Further, there are many Parsi households who are extremely poor, or let's say not very well placed, and have to depend upon charities and doles to meet with their day-to-day expenses, much less the medical emergencies. Most of the persons largely depend upon a medical coverage offered by their employers, and because of this, they and their families are adequately covered. Further, once the person retires, this coverage is no longer available. It is difficult, if not impossible, for a senior citizen to get an insurance coverage. There are many unfortunate Parsis in our community who cannot even afford to take an insurance policy and are therefore left with no insurance cover. A serious illness would mean that these Parsis will have to depend upon the various charitable institutions, just one or two Parsi charitable hospitals, or get free health care as an indigent patient. Health insurance is therefore of the utmost importance today.
Can a trust or an association take an insurance policy for its community?
Various communities like the Jain community, the Kutchi community, the Sikhs, etc., through their various trusts and associations, take a group mediclaim policy for their community members. Those who are able to afford the premium can pay. The trust subsidizes the premium for those who are unable to afford, or even pays the entire premium for certain families.
Mr. Dastoor, can you please enlighten us when you said trust can subsidize the premium for the poor section of the community members? What do you mean by that?
Unfortunately, there are no such policies available today for the Parsi community, which the less fortunate Parsi family can back on. Some years back, W.H.Y had come up with one such policy for the residents through W.H.Y Residents Welfare Association, and had extended it to all the Parsis all over India and abroad. This policy was taken on a voluntary basis. The policy ran successfully for over 12 years, and later the members joined only when they needed the policy for the year and would not renew the next year. Well, you realize what can happen. The youngsters moved out, but continued their elders under the policy, making it unviable. This policy, with the help of all the other Parsi colonies and bags, can be revived once again.
Sir, can you please elaborate on this? What and how should the trust, bag or associations take advantage of this?
A policy which has been given by a Parsi philanthropist has been running for the past many years and have been able to give health insurance and accident coverage to our Parsi priests, pallbearers and their family members free of cost.
Can you please explain how does a family enroll for a group policy?
Good question. A policy can be sponsored by any of the major Parsi charitable trust or an association that wants to lead the same. Those families who can afford to pay the premium will pay the premium to the trust. The trust can subsidize or pay for those families who are not able to pay the premium. The policy will be explained to everyone in the bags through meetings, brochure, digitally, etc. We can then circulate online forms over WhatsApp or even hard copies and collect data.
What would be an advantage to a Parsi family to take a policy in a group instead of an individual policy?
The advantage of taking a group health policy over an individual policy are as follows. Age limit? No, we do not have any age limit in a group medical policy. In a standalone individual policy, most policies restrict entry age to 70 years. But let me tell you, it's not so easy at that age. Normally, and for an individual policy, after 45 years, they would want you to go for a medical checkup. In a group health policy, there is no minimum and maximum age limit, and everyone in the community can take advantage of the policy. Medical checkup prior to acceptance of the policy? No, that happens only in an individual policy. Medical checkup is required, as I mentioned, prior to the policy inception after the age of 45 years, or a tele-medical call. In case a person suffers from any ailment, either the premium is loaded, else the policy is refused. Structured group insurance policy does not require any medical checkup. Pre-existing ailments, diseases, well, in a group medical policy, all this can be covered from day one. In a standalone individual policy, to cover pre-existing ailments, you take 4 years. A 4-year waiting period for a specific ailment. Standalone individual policy, there are 26 ailments which have a waiting period from 1 year to 4 years in all the health insurance policies. However, in a structured group insurance policies, all these are waived. 30 days waiting period, not in a group medical policy. In a standalone individual policy, there is a 30-day waiting period for all claims to initiate or trigger under the policy. Copay? No. No copay is there in a group Mediclaim policy because the group Mediclaim insurance policy can be structured as we want it. The copay in the policy in an individual can range from 10 to 30%. This is something devastating. As a claim of 1 lakh, you will find that 30,000 is deducted because of the copay. Well, you will ask me, what is a copay? Copay is an amount that you will share in an insurance claim. The insurance companies put a copay to ensure that since you are bearing that percentage of the claim, you will minimize or try to minimize the claim expenditure under the Mediclaim policy. For example, if the copay is 30% and your claim is for 1 lakh, 30,000 would be finally deducted at the time when the claim is paid. So in actual sense, you would only get 70,000 rupees. In a group medical policy, we can do away with copay totally and ensure that the young, old, one and all will get a full claim. There are people who may want a very high coverage under the Mediclaim policy and would say, the policy sum insured is not as much as I would want to take. You can always ensure to get a super top-up on the base policy, and I'm sure that will take care of people who want to cover themselves on a high sum insured, which they would not be able to do so under an individual policy. Another question comes in and people say that we find it very difficult to interact with the insurance companies at time of claims. Well, let me assure you that there are very reliable insurance brokers who will take care and ensure that the claims are paid in time, on time, every time that it is triggered. And I, with that, give you a surety and ask everyone in the community, let us join hands and ensure that we implement this group Mediclaim insurance policy at a very early date.
How do you wish to take this forward for the Parsi community, Mr. Dastur?
When I was approached by Mazda Multimedia, I was informed that they would be connecting with all our community, trust and like-minded people who are very much wanting that we in our community should have a group Mediclaim policy. And every year when the panchayat elections are on, they try and bring this to the fore to all the candidates. I believe the viewership of this channel practically do have a good reach in the Parsi community that could help us a lot. We need it, and it's time that we implement it. If all data and sufficient numbers are enrolled, I tell you, when I say sufficient numbers, we start the policy, we can start the policy with 100 families, and 100 or that's not the right factor. We should have 1,000 families, and that would give us a sufficient bounce. I think in a matter of around 3 months, the scheme could come up and start rolling, provided enough people get enrolled. And why not? Everyone wants this policy, and it is time we all get together and enroll ourselves. It all depends how the community accepts it. The scheme can be initiated anytime.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any last parting message for the Parsis?
Yes, I have a message for our community. It was so nice interacting with Mazda Multimedia, and our community, if you look at it, has always been the first in various sectors. Today, let us now take advantage and ensure that we all come together as a family and take the group Mediclaim insurance policy. We have till now been depending on the various trusts, the philanthropic institutions, the hospitals, the philanthropic individuals that have taken care of the community in a crisis. Today, let us join hands, ensure that we take in this system and we all look after each other in the positive manner. Thank you. Nice being with you.